Before we drop into today's very juicy and soulful episode, I need to share something that every high achieving, emotionally intelligent, ready for more woman needs to hear. And that is that my 3-day immersion is officially open for the 8th time. This is my signature 3-day in-person event. And this is not a retreat. It is not a business mastermind. It is not 3 days of journaling in a circle. It is deep cellular transformation that rewires your nervous system, heals trauma at the root, and activates your true feminine power. Women literally fly across the world for this experience because there is nothing else like it. I created my 3-day immersion after literally like 8 years ago. I created it after witnessing how traditional trauma healing and talk therapy and surface level mindset work, how that was keeping women stuck in loops of survival, overthinking, and emotional burnout. So that's when I started creating my MYH method, which is my signature trauma healing methodology. And it is the core of this event and really like how the whole event is very methodically structured. And it is why women leave the immersion saying things like, this literally changed my life. Just do it. This healed what 10 years of therapy couldn't touch. I didn't just understand the work. I became the woman I always was. These are actual quotes that I have pulled from testimonials. So early bird pricing is open now for a very limited time, and you can save $500 when you claim your spot. The link for that is below. Spots are extremely limited. We already have a bunch of spots gone by the time that you're actually seeing this episode. This is a high touch experience. If you are feeling the pull, that is your body speaking. Trust it and do not wait on this, because we have less spots available than we had last year, because we're only doing one immersion this year. We're not doing two. We did two last year. If you are new to my world and you want to feel into this work a little bit more first, my invitation is that you start with my free masterclass Muse, or you join Empoweredly Submissive to begin softening into your feminine now, starting some of the healing work, getting to know me a little bit more inside of Empoweredly Submissive, and then you can join the immersion. But if you are ready to collapse timelines, to quantum leap, and to finally live from the truth of who you are, the immersion is your next step. The link to join is in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you in the room with our new little baby boy. And so without further ado, let's get into today's Roundtable episode and meet the women who said yes, who had incredible transformation and never looked back. All right. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. We have another beautiful group of women here for a roundtable, but this time we're not talking about Queen Alchemy. We're talking about my in-person event, my 3-day immersion. And I'm really grateful to have Gabby, Jill, Reagan, and Grace on the podcast today. And they are just going to share a bit about their experience. We're going to keep it a flowing conversation. And so for those of you that, you're on the fence, or you want to know about the immersion, or you want to hear whether it's a scam or not, this is the place for it. We're going to see where the conversation goes. And so with that, let's open up the floor with the first question. And we'll just kind of go around, like I said, ladies, but if anybody wants to jump in, they're more than welcome to. So first question, what was something that surprised you about the immersion and my approach to trauma healing and being in your feminine? And if there's not just one thing, you can mention a few things that surprised you about the immersion. And Gabby, if you want to kick things off.
Of course. I would have never associated yelling into a pillow or yelling at all into this bucket of quote unquote feminine. But it was a method that we learned that I have found to be so crucial in helping me regulate my emotions so I can better express them, which is how one of the ways that Monica defines embodying your feminine. So that was a big surprise for me.
Amazing. Beautiful. Jill, what was a big surprise for you?
Yeah, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I trusted my intuition. And I'm very familiar with trauma healing because I do similar work in a different way. And it was literally divine timing, firstly, because I signed up like right when it came out. I think it was like October. I was going to sign up for Queen Alchemy. And I was like, yes, I'm in. And then I got pulled into this like relationship that was really dark and really took away a lot of my confidence. And we broke up like right before your immersion. And it was like I needed to be at your immersion, is what I will say. When I walked in this space, it's there's not a lot of places I can feel like I can actually process emotion, because I have a lot of emotion, and most people actually haven't done their work and they can't hold that. And like as a facilitator, it's important for me to be doing that work. And of course, with like the breakup and all the things, I was like, wow, of course, divine timing. And I didn't know what to expect when I walked in, because there's, quite honestly and frankly, so many frauds in this space. And like your Instagram's so beautiful and all of these things, but trust your
Like, is
intuition.
she a scam? I get it.
I'm like, can this girl actually hold like the space for like the depth of emotion, especially after all that? Because what I realized after that was like it was very dark, and there was a lot of rage, and there was a lot of sadness and grief. And when I walked in the room, I just started crying, which like I have gone to like a lot of healing events, and I kind of just stopped going, because I'm like, most of these people just, I'm sorry, again, quite frankly, they're not trained. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's causing more harm. And with trauma, you need to be able to walk people through it. But as soon as I got in the room, like I felt the energy, like the space was protected energetically. I'm so attuned to that. And I'm like, she has me. And so it allowed me to process so much trauma and so much rage and grief, and like transform. I felt like a different person um when I came back. And it wasn't easy. Like I remember a lot of physical pains coming up in like, hope this isn't too much, but like my ovaries, which are like carry like the seeds of our potential. And there was so much trauma stored in there. And one day after the immersion, I was like, I couldn't even walk back to the hotel because there was so much pain, but it was just all releasing out of my body. So yeah, I was very happy with like the way the space was held and what I was able to do. And then of course I jumped into Queen Alchemy, and then one-on-one. I need all of Monica now. I had to wait a few months for one-on-one, and I'm like, I need this now. So here we are, rebirthed. So honestly, I recommend it to anybody who's ready to like actually go and deal with their trauma and wants to like create their life, because the key to shifting your life is trauma healing. Like if you don't do that, nothing else works. The mantras don't work. None of it works if you don't do the trauma healing. So yeah,
Amen.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Grace, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I kind of did the reverse journey as Jill, coming into the immersion. What surprised me most was how worth it was. So I had done a lot of work with Monica already. I had already done Queen Alchemy. I then purchased, I think, just about every pre-recorded program Monica has.
You 100% have. You're like a high
Yeah.
up there client. Like, we love Grace.
Yeah. And then I did one-on-one for 6 months. So I think it was at the tail end of my one-on-one that the immersions opened up, and I had a pause of like, is this worth it? And I think I asked you, Monica, I was like, do I need to do this? Like, because a big thing that you teach, which I love in your perspective as a facilitator and as a coach, is that you want to become obsolete in our healing journey. And so I do question signing up for more stuff. Like, do I need to spend more money on this? Am I actually going to learn something different? And the pause though didn't last long. And I was like, you know what? It feels right, just like Jill. It just, in my intuition, in my body, it felt like the right thing to do. That's another thing I love about your work, Monica, is that you teach us really to tap back into our intuition. That's something as women we have silenced for a long time, societally, and lots of other pressures to ignore our body. But I was like, I'm doing it. And not only did I decide to do the immersion, but I signed up for both New York and Paris, which I will say, I think I'm the only person that did that. One immersion, absolutely yes. Do you need to do 2 back to back? I don't think that's quite as necessary.
Also, keyword, like literally back to back.
Yeah, I think 3 weeks in between. For me though, I chose to do both because I have a really personal, deep connection to both New York and Paris. I currently live in New York City, been there 10 years, and then I've lived in Paris twice. And for me, I always said that Paris is the city that broke me and New York is the city I found myself. So when I heard they were in New York and Paris, I was like, God bless, I'm doing both. And Paris was like, it was either 2 days or before or after my 35th birthday. So I was like, this is divine timing. Let's do a birthday trip, Mom. So I did both. And I am so glad that I did. After doing so much online work with Monica, again, in groups, live, pre-recorded, one-on-one, I did wonder what was the in-person experience going to be like? Was I going to feel like this was redundant? And even though several of the activities we do are activities you do in Queen Alchemy or you do one-on-one, it's an entirely different experience for quite a few reasons, which I did make a couple notes because I don't want to forget
That's
all the
okay.
most important parts.
I love it.
The first thing is that it's Monica's energy that is so radiating and unique. And you do a great job, Monica, I think, about translating that as best you can through a Zoom camera, but
Thank you.
being in someone's energy is entirely different. And being able to do things like the breath work or the anger release, to be able to watch you, first of all, example them and be like, whoa, Monica went there. Okay. But it gives you permission to go there too. And then doing something like the breath work, I think about it like being in a yoga class. Like yoga over YouTube only gets you so far. But when you're in a class or with Pilates or whatever it is, when the instructor is there and can physically come up to you and touch your body and help you move through a stuck moment or go even farther than you could otherwise, like that alone was check worth the money. Another thing that I realized about being in person versus through a Zoom screen is you just cannot hide as easily in person as you might be able to over Zoom. So something again like the breath work or the anger release, two of the biggest things, when you do them in Queen Alchemy, maybe with the breath work, you're in your bedroom alone with the door closed and no one's home. Or like the anger release, you're in a car in an empty parking lot and no one's there to hear you scream. But in person, not only are you hearing everyone else's screams and everyone else's experiences, but you are also being heard. And it's not like everyone's sitting around going like, what is Grace doing? I mean, it's not the case, but it's just you cannot hide in those spaces. And I think when you are really committed to healing and working, like that is such a gift to be in a space like that where you are really encouraged and supported and held to go so deep. And on that note, just to be in person with a group of a couple dozen women, um, I think for a lot of us, especially people that are new to this work, I mean, again, coming into this, I'd already done a lot of work with Monica and other people. So I was not new to dealing trauma, somatic healing, but to do it in a group of women are roughly around the same age, to realize that we're all in this together, you're not alone, and to be able to feel the collective pain. I think that's something we talked about, especially at the end of Paris. Um, there's so much pain in this world, and I think we sometimes feel like we're on an island by ourselves, or our pain doesn't matter because it's not as bad as someone else. And it's like it doesn't matter where it comes from, it just matters how it manifests. And to be in a room with other women of like, oh, I don't feel so silly anymore, or like I feel very validated in my experience, is a really beautiful thing. And the last thing that I think is so unique and wonderful about the in person are the activities. I'm not using the right words here. Activity, somatic healings, that we can only do in person. And the two that stand out to me are the two partner exercises. The one where it was the sitting across from each other, I call it the seeing each other exercise. Um, and literally all you do is you sit there and you look at the other person for about 30 minutes. I want it 40 minutes. I don't know. It's a long time. Monica keeps track of it. But you sit there and you just stare at them. You stare in their eyes. And it seems like such a simple exercise. But for me, especially coming into New York, which was the first immersion I did, um, my focus was actually on being seen, like fully seeing myself, but also allowing others to see me to the depths of my soul. And that exercise, oh man, I was just a puddle by the end of it. It was an incredibly intense exercise for me, and I'm so glad that I got to do it twice since I went to both immersions. And just to see, even within 3 weeks, like where I was the first immersion in that exercise versus the second one, I just already felt like a new, different person. And then the other exercise I loved is I call it the hugging one, but it's again a partner exercise where there's a giver and a receiver of the hug, and then you get to switch. And for me, what stood out about this is it's a really tangible exercise in learning to be held by someone and to really receive someone's space and strength and structure. Because the goal is that you want the receiver to fully let go. And it made me realize I don't think I've ever hugged someone or been hugged by someone and actually let my body completely fall into their arms to the point where if they let go, I would fall on the floor. And as Monica teaches with feminine energy and receiving and trusting yourself and your body, but trusting your partner, like obviously beautiful, tangible exercise with that. And I actually had an experience a couple months ago in my daily life with someone I love dearly who was going through a really tough time. And she had a huge meltdown one night. I'm really glad I was there. And I just asked her, "Do you want a hug?" And she said, "Yes, of course." And so I gave her a hug. And immediately I was like channeling Monica because suddenly all these years of work that I've done with Monica, I was coaching her through what Monica had once coached me through, allowing her to sink into me, to let go, telling her that she's not alone, that she is supported, that she is loved, and getting to that point where she actually could let go and fully sink into me, and like realizing that I was holding her up. And I was really proud of myself, of course, like to just have that, tool in my toolbox to be able to use in my daily life. But I was also really proud of myself because it was like the culmination of all of the work I've done with Monica. I had that tool, I could use it to help a friend. But then throughout the entire thing, my nervous system was so calm and regulated, which is another big part of Monica's work is nervous system regulation. I got to be there to really hold this together. It was not just the two of us in the room, there were others in the room, and I felt like I was the one holding that room together, which is a tremendous responsibility, but also like a go Grace, like I don't know that I could have done this a few years ago, and I'm really proud of that. And all those things to say, even after doing every online program with Monica and working with her one-on-one, I would not hesitate a beat to do in person, or if you did what Jill did and do the opposite direction. There's something that can be learned and another layer that can be peeled back truly with all of the different modalities that Monica offers.
Thank you, Grace. That was so detailed, but like in a beautiful way. So thank you. Reagan, anything that you want to add from your experience?
Like I have to I'm like, I can't top all that. Damn, good good on you, Grace. Like, oh man.
That's all I have to say. Don't worry about it.
No, it's a good thing. I was just like, you keep preaching, I'll turn the pages. But anyways, so my perspective, the immersion was the first trauma healing work I've ever done. Monica, you are the first person that I actually really gave my time and attention to for healing, and it started with just following you on Instagram, and then going on the track, going into the immersion, like finding you came into my life kind of with divine timing, like I feel like a lot of us would say. But what really surprised me being so new to trauma healing, especially about the way you do it, is partially how comfortable you make everyone feel for their releasing, and also what trauma healing actually looks like in terms of the somatic release that you always talk about, because that is 100% true, that it is an integral part to your healing. As I completely agree when you say talk therapy doesn't really do as much, because you can just talk in circles and talk through your emotions, and especially if you're someone who was a big overthinker or is just always constantly anxious or anything like that, talk therapy can just make it so much worse. So I guess something that was surprising about the immersion was what the healing actually looked like the somatic releases. I know I talked about it in the testimonial, but genuinely having sore muscles the day after, and after the releases and the breathwork and everything, was wild. And that's a tangible thing that can speak to the power of really healing your trauma and working through it. And that was probably just the craziest part to me, was actually knowing the physical release being a tangible thing, that like, holy crap, my back is sore, or like my arms are sore, you know what I mean? That was super surprising to me. And there were a lot of other things that was definitely, I don't want to say a shock to my nervous system or my ego in a bad way, but since it was the first work I was doing, I was kind of, diving headfirst into that. But even if that was something that was kind of really unfamiliar or obviously out of my comfort zone, it was something that allowed me to kind of crack the foundation of trauma that I've had, or a lot of the ways that I've thought about things and limiting beliefs and things like that. And just breaking the base of that is something that allowed me to actually really like kickstart my healing journey and heal a lot there, and then also kind of fling me forward. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. I feel like the kind of common thread from what you guys have all have said is like basically what surprised you was that you weren't coming into this like flowy fairy dancing around kind of like let's journal and meditate, but like actually let's release our rage. And to Grace's point of when you were saying that like being in that collective of women, like I can't tell you, you don't see it obviously because you guys have your eyes closed and whatever, but like my favorite parts are the anger release and the breath work. And like I am like sweating and crying with you guys. And there is something like so majestic and so fucking beautiful when like I have full goosebumps just thinking about it. When all these women are in the room feeling so safe to be the truest versions of themselves. Like how many times, like I have so many goosebumps, how many times do we, whether it's inhibit our voice or tell ourselves to stop crying or we shouldn't be so angry or we shouldn't be this. And then not only do we let ourselves then finally feel that privately, but we do it in front of other women and not one other woman in the room is judging you. Like we are fully being seen in our exhaustion, in our pain, in our rage, like in all of it. Like even just I feel like sometimes people would just, even if you're like an exhausted woman, like you would get so much out of the immersion because you have a space to like actually finally let go and feel your exhaustion and not feel like you have to kind of like keep that wall around you or, you know, stay like this A-type person, but like fully soften. However, on that note, I think that can also be really scary for a lot of people. Like that this isn't just like, oh, I can like keep my guard up and still look like I've got all my shit together and whatever. Like it's really scary also being seen. It's scary for some people to see the promo video and be like, I have to scream like that. Of course, once you're in the space, you guys can't fucking wait. You're like, yes, breathwork round number 2, we're ready, right? But when like at the beginning, it's really scary. And for some people that fear can then be enough to make them be like, I'm not going to buy the ticket because that just seems too scary. This is like kind of a side question I didn't have planned, but do any of you have any thoughts on that just come up that you want to share? Maybe you had that fear or any woman that is like hearing what you guys had to say, or they've watched the promo video and they're like, I am not screaming in that room. That looks awful, or it looks like some cult thing that's being done. Like, I don't want to be a part of it. Anyone can jump in. Yeah. Okay. Go for it, Jill.
Okay, so firstly, it's not a cult. I've heard of a cult before. This is not a cult. Big difference. Secondly, what I just want to say is like it can like seem intimidating, but when you're in the space, it's held so like you're so good at holding the space. That's one thing that is very, very rare. And it makes the biggest difference. So it allows you to be like, okay, I can finally release. And like what you said about exhaustion, like that is still carrying a lot of energy. Like I've been in that space, you've held me in that space, and it's so important to release that, to create any space. And if you actually want to shift, if everything in your life is not like exactly what you desire, then the only thing holding you back is trauma. And so yeah, you can go journal and you can go like, ooh, love and light, but like nothing's gonna shift. I'm sorry.
Jill
Like
knows I love that phrase as a sign off to emails. Love and light. Like when I see, like, I don't think any of you guys have emailed. Most people that know me don't email me like this. But when I get like a pitch or something and it's like at the end, love and light, when I will skim the pitch. And when I see that, I'm like, immediately, no, delete. It just irks me.
because it's spiritually bypassing. This is actually how they control you in a way where you don't have discernment. And you've helped me like create a lot of discernment in my life. I mean, some comments even at the retreat. You made one comment about who are you letting in your life, and that like literally led to like all of this examining of like, whoa, I was letting people through this spiritual bypass love and light and accept everyone. And you know, somebody is abusing you, no worries, just accept that. And oh, this friend's like doing the shady stuff and like manipulating you, just I mean, there's always a reflection, like where you manipulating yourself to fit in. That was mine. But like, no, have discernment. And so anyways, the thing I really wanted to say, because I could talk about that forever, is the whole love and light spiritual bypassing is not going to make you shift any part of your life ever. Most people are doing like mantras and journaling and all of this stuff, but the somatic work is the real work, because the mind is only 15% of the shifts can only happen in the mind. The body informs the mind. What does that mean? So our nervous system and how our EMF field, our electromagnetic field, measurable science, what that's emitting is equivalent to like the trauma. Say we have like a deep experience of shame, so we're carrying that energetic, which means we're a magnet to it. The only way to release that is somatically. So you're missing 85% if you're just doing the journaling, all these other things. And of course it's scary, because you're literally transmuting the traumas that weren't felt and healed in the moment that you've probably been carrying for decades. Whereas like an animal will just like shake after they're safe. We don't do that. We push it down, which starts to amplify that samskara, that stuck energy. And then you become a more and more magnet to it. And the universe is like, yo, hello, heal this if you don't want to repeat this cycle. And then once we actually go into it, then that's where we can actually heal it and become a non-match to whether it's like an abusive relationship, or whether it's like, you know, getting treated poorly at a job or undervalued, or all of these things. All of the work is in the somatic work. And the bypassing, this is why if anybody's like in the cycle of I've done everything, nothing shifted, well, you haven't gone deep with the somatic work. And that's why, because when you do science, you will shift. You have to. You shift the magnet of what you attract, and then you start attracting things that you actually like and are supportive to your vision, dreams.
Love it. Thank you, Jill. Reagan, did you want to say something about the same kind of question of people that are like, this looks too scary to do?
Yes, because this is something that I wish I like sat in front of myself and was just like shook myself and was like, just freaking let go and just let yourself be seen in this, because it's something I felt myself holding back from, because it is very scary and intimidating, especially, again, this is like the first trauma healing work I've done. So when I was there and everyone's having beautiful releases and like everyone's kind of just screaming and just like making noises and like very good things, like somatic healing that you need to do to your ego and to the part of you that's really scared to be there, I definitely felt being like, oh, I don't want to do this. This is too scary. I don't want to be seen like this. Like, people are going to think I'm crazy. What? Like, I don't want to do it. But the thing that I realized is the only space to be able to do that in safely is in person, in, you know, your immersion like this, because having that space, like, you may think like, oh, someone's going to judge me, something's going to go wrong or whatever, but actually let yourself be seen and let yourself fully commit to it, because in doing so, you will find that you are caught. Like, you think that there's no safety net or someone's going to judge you, like I said, but if you actually really commit to it and fully just release any expectations of yourself or any judgments of yourself and let yourself be fully immersed into it, no pun intended for the immersion, you will get the most results out of it. Like, that is what is the key to healing, and everyone else around you is doing it. Like, we're all normal people, so to say, but also like everyone is carrying this type of trauma. There's something to be said for how much we have to heal as people. So I just wanted to,
That was great. And I liked what you said about like, you think you won't be caught, but you will be caught. And that's why, for anybody listening, I only take a certain amount of people. Like, my energetic maximum is 40 people, because I know that anything beyond that, like, I can't then catch everybody in the room, right? Because there's only one of me. And I don't want to then like diminish the experience, because I'm just like, oh, let's just have more people. But then more people doesn't actually necessarily mean a better experience, right? Because then you lose that kind of intimacy and touch point that's really needed for like this kind of stuff. Hence, like, you know, I've been to Tony Robbins' event. I mean, his work is completely different, but like, I would never be able to run this kind of event that big. I mean, I just think that would be a negative experience, right? Because then you have too many energies in the spaces, and it's not that sense of intimacy. And I think, to one of you was saying this, of just like, to that point of you're in this space with other women that are, you know, like-minded, around a similar age, give or take, you know, 10, 20 years or whatever. But most importantly, like, age isn't a factor. It's like, we all are in the same boat. And that brings safety, you know, and I'm particular. I don't just let anybody join that's like going to bring a bad vibe. And like that, I just think that in and of itself, being in a room with other women in person, like, God, we're craving that, especially after all like the COVID stuff, which is why I've been trying to do more in-person stuff. And I'm like, that in and of itself is an upgrade, just to be in a room of like-minded women. Grace, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I would go so far to say as there is literally no other environment opportunity like this to go to the depths of the healing that you get to go in this immersion. I know for me, the anger release was what I was most nervous about. This was one instance where knowing what was coming, I don't think was beneficial for me.
Yeah.
This was a moment where I was like, I wish it would have been Reagan and have absolutely no idea what was coming. Because I had done this through Queen Alchemy. Even though I had cried and screamed in front of Monica one-on-one like umpteen times, felt very comfortable and trusted her, I was super in my ego and in my head when it came to the anger release. And even up to the moments of before I was going to get up myself, I was having conversations with myself about what I wanted to accomplish. And I was really afraid of being seen because, again, coming into the first immersion, that was my focus, was allowing myself to be seen. So much fear of being judged, but really I'm the only one judging myself. No one else is. And I remember saying to myself before the first anger release at the first immersion I went to, I was like, don't waste this opportunity. Like this opportunity, not to be dramatic, is not going to come again. I mean, for me, it was going to come another 3 weeks, but it's like to be able to experience that kind of emotion at that level with other people and to be held, like it made me think you can show some depth of that emotion with your partners, with the people you trust the most in your life, but like it just like it takes it to a whole other level. And I knew I didn't want to waste that. And I will say, for me personally, since I knew I had another opportunity coming, I would say I gave New York like 80% of my rage.
Mm.
And then when I got to Paris, that was the most I think I've ever let go. And it wasn't until after Paris that I finally started doing my own little anger releases at home. And I know Monica talks a lot about this, where she's like, she says to Hal, I just need a minute. And then she like
Yeah.
goes into another room, screams, does her thing, and then comes back. And I'm like, it wasn't until after Paris that I finally understood what she meant by that. And I'm just so grateful to have an environment like this. Like it is so unique and so special and such a privilege to be able to be in that room with Monica and with all the other women.
Thank you. That was amazing. Okay. Moving on to the next question. All right. So, when you all were sitting there on your computer or on your phone, considering like whether or not to buy a ticket, what were some of your hesitations before buying your ticket to the immersion? And now that you've been, what would you say to that hesitation? I feel like we've kind of touched on this, but just if we were to like summarize into like a few sentences. So when you were sitting there, like what were your hesitations? And now that you've been, and also now that you've been, and now that it's been a while, like it's been nearly a year since the immersion. So now that you've also lived since the immersion and integrated everything, what would you be saying to that hesitation? Gabby, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think the cult comment we've talked
Mhm.
about a bit, that was huge for me. I literally mentioned that in the email with, I can't remember if it was Olivia, but when I was
It was Olivia.
considering
I
going,
remember her messaging it to me. I was in
yes,
the car driving. I remember your email. It's okay. We love these
yeah,
questions.
right. I was fully transparent with all my concerns because it's like a good amount of money, right?
Yeah, it's
And
a lot
so
of money.
yeah, I said, is this like a cult? And I loved her response because it actually gave me more of confirmation that I should go. Because she was like, look, if you don't feel aligned, you don't have to go. Like, it wasn't forceful, you know? And that made me feel like, okay, Monica's like not pushy. And then what I did that was really helpful, and this is actually advice I would give to anyone who's on the fence, I gave myself 2 weeks. I said, you have to decide by 2 weeks. And I tried to go on with my life as normal in those 2 weeks and just notice where my thoughts were going. And oftentimes, like every day, I was thinking about the immersion again. And so it got to the point where I was driving my husband crazy because he's like, you need to go to this thing. I can't stand you talking about this, considering this thing anymore. Please just go. So I think that's very different than, for example, for scrolling and we see a retreat and we get that dopamine rush of, oh, this sounds really fun and it's cool and could be healing, but you kind of forget about it in a few hours or something. So that was something I did want to mention about anyone who's on the fence. And there was another thing too, but come back to me because I forgot.
Yeah, I'll come back. That's a really great though. I've never even considered mentioning that to somebody, but I mean, I guess I kind of say it like if you keep thinking about it, it's obviously meant for you. But I like the way that you worded that, Gabby, of like you gave yourself a time limit. And if you was still thinking about it within that time limit, like that was kind of like the sign to just fucking do it. And it's like every day you're then thinking about it. And I just think about, you know, how, you know, I think I've said this on podcasts before, but we all kind of know this of like people will say, if you're still thinking about the pair of shoes, just fucking buy the pair of shoes. Right. And it's kind of like we need to do that with other things too. Of if you're still thinking about, you know, an item of clothing that you want to buy, then if you're still thinking about a retreat or an experience or doing something, it's probably your body telling you you're going to get something really amazing out of this thing. So I love that. Thank you, Gabby. Let me know when you've remembered your other thing and we'll come
I
back to you.
remembered it.
Great.
Yes. So the
Yay.
question was
Perfect.
about hesitation, right?
Yes.
The other
Yes.
hesitation I had, and I think Grace mentioned this too, about wondering if it would be worth it. Because I wasn't at a rock bottom in life. Like things were going well. There were these things though that I felt that had been accumulating and that I still wanted to work on, especially before like, considering becoming a mom. And I think you you made a post about healing these things before becoming a parent. That for me was like a huge. It was an impulse. What you mentioned about healing in order to become a best parent for your child. That was a huge impulse for me to consider going to the immersion. So yeah, even though I wasn't at a rock bottom in life, I still felt like I had transformed as a person after the immersion.
Amazing. That was great. Thank you, Gabby, for sharing that. Jill?
Yeah, so intuition. But before that, I have one thing to say about the last comment. There's something, question, so healing about being witnessed in your rage, in your sadness, in your grief. It's great to do these practices by yourself, and they're very powerful. And it's a whole other level of healing when you can be witnessed and experience these emotions in your dignity. And emotions are literally energy in motion. Etymology literally says it. So if you're lacking energy in your life or like inspiration, all of these things, like there is nothing like in person and being witnessed in that. So what I'll say is I didn't really have any hesitations because my intuition, which I'd love to talk about for a moment because people don't understand this in general, my intuition was like, go. My higher self was like, go. So I trusted and I listened to that. I had no idea I was going to go through a breakup like a couple weeks before. I had no idea, but like we have a higher guidance that literally knows these things and timelines. So when we trust our intuition, which is not our emotion, if you're in fear about something, you lose access to your intuition while you're in the fear. If you are, like emotional manipulation's a real thing. So intuition is soft, it is subtle, it's this divine guidance. And most people don't follow it because they're disconnected from it or their body, or as women, our wombs, because of trauma. And so when it's our highest guidance to everything. So when we follow it, this is kind of like how we manifest and create. And so for me, it was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. A past me years ago, before I did a lot of money work, would have been hesitant about the money. And what I want to say about that, guys, is like, you will not change if you don't have any like skin in the game. If you don't give over something that you value, money, stored value in exchange. So some people are like, oh, it's so much. True healing requires you to invest a significant amount that feels like, whoa, I just gave something, for you to actually show up for yourself and do the work. So if anyone's hesitating about the money, like you really have to look through the lens of that money is like a commitment to yourself, to higher self, source, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that you are going to show up and look at it as you're investing in yourself. I have spent invested a lot, hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably $500,000 in my healing. And the reason it comes back is because it's like this investment into self. And so don't let that hold you back. It's the biggest thing that holds so many people back. And if you just look at it like, I'm paying myself, it's going to come back tenfold, 20-fold, maybe not right away. but it will. And in so many forms that are like not even just tangible money. And it's important to make that investment. Like if it's an investment that doesn't feel a lot, you're not going to shift. You're not going to heal. You're not going to show up. When it feels like, whoa, this is a lot, that's a good thing. That's where the shifts happen.
Well, it helps to create that healthy pressure, right? Where it's like if you spent that money, you're lying on the mat being like, your ego's talking to you. You're like, I don't want to fucking do this thing. And then it's like, wait, I spent $5,000 to come to this. Fuck it. I'm just going for it. But if you spend $100, like I'm telling you, you'd probably rock up 20 minutes late. You wouldn't do the homework. Like you wouldn't then integrate. And that's why I'm actually really purposeful. Like people will be like, oh, why don't you do scholarships? Or why don't you do this for like the Immersion or whatever, or Queen Alchemy? And I'm like, we don't discount any of the like live things, whether it's in person or whether it's online, like Queen Alchemy, because like I tried that during COVID for the obvious reasons, right? When that was happening. And it's like people don't show up as much, right? It's just, it doesn't matter how much you want to show up. If you've gotten something for free, you're not going to. You know what I always think about with that? Do you know when you were younger and you had to like go to the physio or something or other because you'd like sprained your ankle and like your mom or dad is paying? Did you do your exercises? I didn't. Because you don't have like, you don't like, I didn't, right, with the physio or whatever. You could like think of another example. But now when you're an adult and you have sprained your ankle and you go to the physio, what are you doing before bed every night? Your exercises, because you've paid the money and you're like, I need, like, if I'm paying this money, I want to get something out of it. And so just even thinking about it like that, it's the same. It's like that investment, that is also what makes you show up so fucking fully over those 3 days.
And it's 100%. It's, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Neural pathways. Okay, so if you're just speaking about something in therapy, there's two big problems. You're not doing the somatic work, which I meant to say earlier, and you're literally ingraining those like shitty neural pathways that are not helping you even more. They need to be pruned. That's your trauma healing. And then B, the reason so many people are like seeing a therapist for 20 years for the same issue is literally because they're getting it subsidized. I worked in the clinical world and I used to take people's insurance. And when I stopped doing that, it was like way more people, like the track record was like crazy. Versus when people weren't investing, they didn't care, they didn't show up, they didn't do the work. It was a waste of my time, it was a waste of their time, and it was a waste of whatever government money. Nothing is free in life. And so that's all I'll say on that. The investments.
I never even thought of that actually, like with therapy, like if you're getting it for free, then there's not the value exchange in a sense, right? And we don't value our time anyway. So people value their hard-earned money way more than they value their time. So them spending the 30 minutes driving there, the hour in the chair and the 30 minutes home, they're not valuing that, and then they're not paying. I never really thought of that. So that's a good point.
Yeah, it's bonkers. When I shifted that, I was like, whoa. That actually made me think about money way differently, and like how I started realizing, wow, when I invest something that feels like a lot for me and it's like, whoa, that's where the most powerful shifts happen. But if it's like just a small amount, that's like whatever, and it's all relative based on like what our income is, right? Which we can continue to increase with energetics and trauma healing. Go to the retreat for the immersion. But
thank you, Jill. Just plug. I didn't pay her, I promise.
She didn't pay me. I'm paying her.
Yeah, exactly. Other way around.
Other way around. And I'm very grateful too, because I know that when it's a significant amount, that feels a lot for me, especially when I'm between a rock and a hard plate, which there was a financial thing because of my breakup and stopped lunches that I was relying on. And I still signed up right after the immersion for one-on-one and Queen Alchemy, because I was like I needed a payment plan, which I rarely do. But the thing was, like, I was like, okay, I'm even now more committed. And because of that, I'm a completely different person. I'm more in my power. It shifted my business. It shifted everything in my life. Not my whole friend group, but the friends that were not aligned. It's like everything shifts, but you need to make that investment. And part of that is money. I have a spiritual teacher that's like, if you're doing trades in these things, it's like not going to work nearly as much, because the money that people are investing, and he actually even said, he's like, as I raised my prices, the results went from about, I was giving similar advice, like 5% to 10% to like 100% success. The more, that's all I'll say. Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
love
talk
it. Love it.
forever, but
Jill could do a whole podcast on this. We love it. She's got a podcast. You can go listen to it. I did want to say though, Reagan, when Jill was talking about the therapy thing, you were like really nodding your head. Was there something else that, like, let's go to you, and what were your hesitations when you were sitting at the computer? And if you wanted to say anything on what Jill was saying.
Yeah, aggressive head nods, because I I was someone, I don't want to like go into a whole like 20-minute backstory of my whole life story, but like my biggest things were overthinking and always being anxious and being a perfectionist. Just very much, I lived in my head for like 8+ years of my life, pretty much the entirety of, you know, childhood and beyond that I could remember. You know how you talk about like being in your body and feeling your body? I had no fucking clue what you're talking about. So where was I going with that? Oh,
And
yes,
thank you
talk
for saying
therapy.
that. So for anyone else that's like, I don't know what you're talking about, it doesn't mean that you don't know what it doesn't actually mean you don't know what I'm talking about. It means you can't feel what I'm talking about. It doesn't resonate for you because you don't know what it feels like to be in your body.
Yes, and that's something that the immersion was another surprising thing, but also it was the first opportunity that I was actually able to settle into knowing what being in my body felt like. And that in itself is something that really just showed me how much of my life I was missing out on, just being so in my head. And I was so aggressively nodding to the talk therapy thing because I had been through very small amount. It was like through my school, and it was kind of subsidized almost, but I went to talk therapy a little bit in a more stressful year of college, kind of just to have someone to vent to or whatever. But it just annoyed me because being someone who was so in my head, talking about my problems again just affirmed the belief of like that they didn't go anywhere. Just talking about it's kind of just, you put it on the table and the therapist looks at it and they're like, yep. And then I could probably 9 times out of 10 guess what they were going to say. Not to say that I'm at the level of a clinical psychologist, but I just kind of knew the vibe of like what was probably going to be recommended to me, or, you know, ways that I could think differently. And it wasn't something that actually got rid of the problem, because in someone like me thinking so much about everything, like I could think of probably everything they were going to say. So going to therapy as a means of getting rid of limiting beliefs or getting out of victimhood is something that was pretty detrimental because it just affirms everything that you're talking about. Like you talk about this a lot with talk therapy and victimhood, where if you're just talking about your problems, your therapist's job not is not just to make you feel better, but it's to work on your issues, and also to some extent, obviously, they probably feel some pressure to, you know, kind of take your side more or less, unless you have someone who's very objective and like, you know, does their job well in that way. But a lot of therapists, human nature will just lean into like, you're so right, this person did you so wrong, like you should just cut them out of your life and things like that. It's just, that's not sustainable, and that's not something that's going to actually get you results and move you into a more empowered way of thinking. Whereas doing somatic work and the immersion actually gives you a chance to shed all the shit and the limiting beliefs and step into more of yourself. I actually know what you mean now when you were talking about how doing this work isn't becoming this new version of yourself that is this brand new shiny person you don't even know. It's coming back into more of yourself at your core, who just isn't carrying all this shit anymore. So on the point of me sitting in front of the computer buying the immersion, this is a funny story, by the way. I accidentally bought the Paris immersion first. I live in Connecticut.
Oh, you were that person.
I was that person,
Okay.
Monica. I am a train ride away from New York City. I am literally like, not even funny. And I bought that ticket in class. I was like one of the first people to buy it, the re-release ones, because I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm committed to this. I'm going. I'll explain the other parts.
Yeah.
And the way that my heart literally dropped into my ass when I saw that I was going to Paris instead of New York, I was like, oh my God. And you know, it's such a big investment too. I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So yeah, that was the whole thing.
But she went to New York, everybody. It was all sorted, and she went to New York. You emailed us, like, I feel like right away to be like, oh my God, I
It
bought
was
the wrong one.
instantaneous. I
Yeah,
literally,
it was fine.
I put the, like, the header of the email is like urgent, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I was so scared it was gonna go away. But anyways, when I was considering going to the immersion, I knew that there was a lot of stuff I needed to work on. I knew I definitely had trauma, just like everyone else does, you know, just naturally going through life. And I knew that I've always kind of been meant for a bigger path than always just being anxious, overwhelmed, constantly having the responsibility of everyone else. And I was just ready to shift my life. But again, I was in college. It's not like this investment is pocket change. And I was feeling really called to it. But I was scared, what are people going to think of me? Like, what am I going to tell my 20, 21-year-old college friends? Oh, I'm going to this like immersion from this lady on Instagram who I follow who talks about trauma healing. They'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
You are crazy. Yeah.
Yes. And I still, live with my parents. It's not like I was independently into full adulthood, not living at home anymore. So it was very uncomfortable for me. Even like explaining it to my boyfriend now, like at the time we were talking, because it was kind of in between. I bought the ticket within literally a month. No, within like a month and a half, I met my boyfriend, who is genuinely my soulmate. But I was trying to explain to him what I'm going to with this event. And he was like, I'm not really
explain this to
following.
a dude. Just don't. Yeah, just.
I know. I was like, I can't do this. Okay, I feel like I haven't even said the point, but anyways, the thing that actually made me buy the ticket after having the intuitive nudge, after feeling like I would get so much out of it, was one of my friends telling me, oh, I don't know if you should go, that's really expensive. As soon as they said that, I was like, fuck that, I'm going. I was like committed to it because I knew I wanted to go, and I did not want that fear to hold me back, because I think one of the other testimonial videos talked about how one of the women were talking about the time does not come back. The money comes back, the time does not come back. And if you commit yourself to actually really putting energy to an event, even if you don't heal every single cell of trauma in your body, it will still at least, heal the base layers. And like I said before, crack the foundation of a lot of those limiting beliefs and those unhealthy patterns in your life to actually set you up for a massive amount of growth moving forward. So
that was
great.
A whole
I
spiel. Loved that. No, that was fabulous. I will say though, for anybody listening that's like, no, I actually have to explain this to my husband, you can send a message to us, because I actually have written this out so many times for women of how to explain it to your husband, like what to show him, blah, blah, blah. So I can send you that email. But you know what's funny? Literally 10 times out of 10 times, we build up this fear of trying to explain to our husband or our partner or whatever, like, this is what I want to go to. Are you okay with me spending the money on this? Because most of the time, these people that are asking me these women, it's shared accounts, right? So they just want to confirm with their husband, like, it's okay for me to spend this money because, like you said, it's not pocket change. And literally 10 out of 10 times, these women are like so stressed out about telling their husband, blah, blah, blah. I tell them what to say, and their husband's like, babe, I just want you to be happy. If this is going to make you happy, go to the event. And same with Queen Alchemy, like, we don't give men enough credit. Like, they just want to make us happy. And if we know this is going to be it for us and it's going to help us, then they're just like, go. Like, I'll take care of the kids, or I'll manage this, or spend the money. Like, I don't mind. And that whole thing of just like not feeling enough, not feeling valued, like, we diminish our worth so much that we don't even think we're worthy to like spend money on ourselves, go to a 3-day thing, feel better about ourselves, etc. So thank you for sharing that, Reagan. Appreciate it. Grace, do you want to jump in with any final thoughts on these hesitations?
Sure. I had thoughts, and then you just spoke so beautifully that they went somewhere
sorry.
else.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean,
well, if you've forgotten, I can say something and then I come back to you. You're good.
Yeah. So my hesitations are more around, I'd already done so much work with Monica. I'd already done a lot of healing. I was at that crossroads of like, have I done enough healing? Because Monica also teaches you, she empowers you to get to the place of, I get to decide I'm done. And I did have a moment of, am I done? And especially to invest in yet another expensive program with Monica, it was like, should I maybe try a different coach? Should I go a different route? Like, where is my best investment spent? And as Jill talked a lot about, I went with my intuition at first. And I think that when the hesitation ever comes in, it's when you go into your logic. It's when you go into your head and you go into your ego and you start going, well, it's going to cost this much money. It's going to cost this much time. I started going, well, we're going to be doing some of the same exercises we did in Queen Alchemy. Like, why do I need to do that in person? And what just sold me, first of all, is just the intuition, the nudge of just go, but also looking at it as it's a different modality. It's not over Zoom, it's in person. I knew enough about what Monica does to know that there's got to be another layer I can pull back if I go in person. And also the opportunity to meet other women who are in the same boat. Um, so I'm at the place, though, I would say now, I was just going to say where I feel like I'm kind of never really done healing, but maybe
But to
for
the point where you
now.
can like be healing yourself, right? That's always
Yeah.
like the intention, where you can take yourself through the human moments, right? Like we're not aiming
Yeah.
for perfection, we're aiming for like I've got my own back now.
Yeah. Like, at what point do you feel like I've done enough healing and I have enough tools in my toolbox that when something new comes along, I can address that myself and feel confident about it? And at the end of the day, unlike others who have a partner, like I've been single this whole time, so I didn't have anyone to answer to other than myself, which sometimes is great, and other times I resent that because I'm like, I would just like someone else to tell me this is a good idea. So sometimes that can feel a little isolating, but at the end of the day, very grateful that, I'm the only person I have to answer to when it comes to spending thousands of dollars. So that's not bad. But
Yeah.
very grateful, obviously, that I chose to do this and make that investment in myself.
I love it. Thank you, Grace. The last thing I want to say that I was going to mention when Reagan, you were talking before is like, and maybe if any of you want to jump in with this, in regards to like how you feel like the immersion is still paying off now or anything like that. But the aspect of like something that I'm really big on is like on the whole therapy thing and just cutting out people from your life and stuff that can often be that very, and it's very much on Instagram, right? Like, oh, someone's toxic, cut them out, draw a boundary, blah blah blah. It can make us feel like we actually just can't have a human experience. Like it just adds more pressure to us of like we have to be perfect, we have to like fit into these new rules, and like this is what it means to have done the work and like be enlightened and blah blah blah. And I really try to take a different approach of like that's like not always the answer. Cut people out, and like life is more complicated than that and situations are more complex than that. And my intention is always like just how can you navigate life better in a more regulated, grounded way, in a way where you feel like you don't lose yourself, where you can still be seen, where you can honor your truth in those moments where you need to like, where you have had like a human moment happen or something traumatic happen. Are you able to take yourself through that versus just suppressing it, and then having to like not start again, but kind of that whole thing of like, oh, I have to get more help now because this thing happened versus I actually know how to take myself through this. So to kind of wrap up, curious if you guys have any thoughts on that you want to share in regards to like maybe what you felt like was a little bit different or refreshing, and or how you feel like the impact of the immersion is still playing out in your life.
I know we've been shitting on talk therapy a lot through the session. I've done talk therapy in and out throughout the years, and I actually am now in a place with talk therapy where I feel like the immersion and all of this work, but especially the immersion, got me to a place of I'm using talk therapy in the most effective way I ever have in my life. And I think it's because, first of all, I'm very grateful. Like, I have a great therapist who's just good at her job. And I know
Yeah,
there are a lot
thank you.
of,
I was going to say that right to
yeah.
like Reagan's thing of like, of course there are the good therapists out there, right? But so like to mention that, like, of course there are the good therapists, and there's a time and a place for it, especially when. So for anybody listening, especially if you've never processed anything, that sometimes going to talk therapy is actually the best place to start because you become aware of some of the things that you're holding on to. But if you feel like you've been going there for ages and not getting a result, that's where it's like, okay, time to try something else. But yes, back to your point, Grace.
And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned through working with Monica, one of the hardest lessons, is that no one person in your life, even your partner, is the person that's meant to hear everything in your head, which was a huge shift for me because I came from a perspective of like, of course I want my partner to like want to, first of all, want to hear everything and have the capacity to hear the vomit come out of my mouth. And I, one of the things you've taught, and I can't remember exactly how you taught it, but it stuck with me that, especially when it comes to the masculine feminine dynamic, that it's actually good to not share literally everything in your head with your partner, especially if your partner is a male. And so for me, I'm still not partnered, but I apply that to like my family, my friends, and it's gotten me to a place where, as someone who has been a perpetual external processor and vomiter of my thoughts, and also coming from a people pleasing, like wanting to ask everyone and their mother their opinion on something before I actually make the choice myself. Like, I'm now on the other side of that for the most part. Every
Thank
once in a while
God.
I do have, yeah, every once in a while I have that human moment and I realize, Grace,
Yeah.
why have you asked the whole table of people? But anyway, I'm now at a place with my therapist where I have she holds a very specific purpose for me, and I get to use the skills that I've learned in being able to process my emotions and my triggers. And it's just, I use her as a tool to be my sounding board of that processing. And I'm now at the place where there are several things in my life that I just don't talk to anyone else about. And it's not because I'm being cagey or whatever. I just realize, like, the healthiest way for me to address this is with myself and occasionally my therapist. And I feel really confident and good about that.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
Sometimes we do just need a vent or like a sounding board. I can't count how many times I'm like voice messaging my healer and then I'm like, oh, I got the answer. Don't worry about it. You don't need to listen to the rest of this. Right. Because sometimes, like, but that is the beautiful place to get to where you're able to then like regulate yourself and whatnot, where sometimes you just have to speak out loud and then you actually get your own answer. And because you know how to trust yourself, you're like, oh, I got my answer. I don't need yours because you trust your answer. But sometimes we just need, I think I've said this maybe at the immersion or on like to clients or something. I'm like, I'm the biggest fan of voice memo apps. I'll just be on a walk talking to myself because I get my own advice when I'm talking to myself, right? Because that intuition can then just come through because we're just in like a channel of thoughts.
sometimes my therapist barely says a word in the session. And I go, was that like, what did I just pay for? Because I don't have insurance. So speaking of that front, like, this is the first time in my life where I've had therapy without insurance. She has a sliding scale, and for the first time, I'm paying the upper end of the sliding scale, which is like, I'm investing in my talk therapy, so I am getting everything out of it I can. But those sessions that do happen where she barely says anything, it's not because, like, it's still not a waste. It's like, I'm able to literally run through everything, and she'll pop in every once in a while, but it's like, oh, this was still really helpful and useful to me, because I know, like, I have the tools to walk.
Well, sometimes we need to just pay for the space to listen to ourselves.
Yes.
Like, as odd as that sounds, like, seriously, like, we have to pay, like, because then we value going and actually listening to ourselves, for example, in the talk therapy or whatever, versus like just continuing to grind through our day and ignore ourselves. So love that. Jill, did you want to share what came through for you?
I just want to say that, like, if we just cut everybody out, and I hope I didn't like skew people the wrong way by being like, I just cut out everyone out. That's not what happened. We are a match to everything in our life. So, like, even that relationship, I was a match to it. I created it. I magnetized it to me. It was not the first time. It was the most intense time. And so there was a lot of people in my life that fell out because I started to do deeper. There was a deep imprint that I started to heal. So, like, your comment illuminated things, and it took a while, but eventually people just, because I started healing myself, we weren't a match. So what I'll say is just cut this and this person out and this. Well, you're literally just going to magnetize the exact same situation. Maybe it'll be a different partner. Maybe it'll be at work. Maybe it'll be whatever. But if you don't do the inner work, then, and the trauma healing, then you're still going to magnetize the same thing. The integration is like really important. So, like, so much shifts in your life, and if you keep doing, like, you give us tools like the nervous system expansion, like bomb, because like I was
Yes.
under the impression that
Even Hal uses that, and you guys know, like, Hal does not do this stuff, and even he's like, yeah, when I tell somebody about it, he's like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like,
it is, because I was under the impression that, like, oh, everyone's talking about feminine, just like don't do anything. And I'm like, yo, I'm running a business. I have a puppy. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces in my life. I'm in classes, I'm in a school, like I have private clients. Like, there's a lot. I can't just be in my feminine. And so you're like, oh, Jill, like, have you been using this? And I was like, oh, right. And when I started using it, even like speaking my truth, the growth happens in discomfort. You want more money? Well, money's energy. You have to be able to go into that discomfort and hold it. And so like tools like that, so long as you're integrating them, integration is very important. But if you're utilizing them, then your life just continues to shift, and you can continue to expand and call in like more money, or speak your truth more, be in your authentic expression more, which ironically is a massive key code to success. It's one of the highest frequencies is authenticity, but it's not easy. So if you use the tools, it will continue to be on a trajectory. But regardless, like a lot's it's not like your 3D reality is just like it's magically shifts. What happens is you shift. And so the way you respond to things that show up shifts, which then the people shift around you, and we treat people how to treat us. So once we start like honoring ourselves, they have to honor us or they'll follow, which is kind of what happened with me in a lot of situations. There was just a lot of disrespect because of course I was disrespecting myself. So I mean the shifts will continue like literally forever if you use the tools. There's always another layer, but I think that part was like really important about like giving us like those very like simple but powerful tools that you can actually integrate, because like not a lot of people have like 3 hours they can just carve out every single day to do like certain practices, like we have lives to live, businesses to run, jobs, family, kids. So I mean the shifts will continue so long as you keep using the tools.
Thank you, Jill. Beautiful. Reagan, Gabby, was there any last things that you guys wanted to share? No pressure. Okay, Reagan, go for it.
Sorry, I feel bad. I'm like
That's
trying to
okay.
squeeze it. Just a bit quick. But I will say the flow-on effect from the immersion for me has been ridiculous. I feel like it's actually opened up a completely different plane of living. And even within, like I said before, within a month or two of just buying the ticket, like crazy things happened. I was like grand prize winner of this random gift card. I met my soulmate on fucking Tinder, which is like
Love it.
ridiculous.
Vibes.
And went through the summer in a job I didn't like, which pushed me into like the actual dream career that I have now, and a job that's way better fitting for me. And besides all of those kind of external things, I respond to situations a lot better. I don't react as much. I'm not overthinking about things I used to overthink about. I feel much more calm. I feel confident in actually following my intuition and expanding myself, and also bringing safety into my body, the nervous system expansion. There's so many things that have completely changed the scope of my life and make me feel like I'm actually way more myself than I ever was before I invested. So massive shifts have happened.
Amazing. Thank you, Reagan. Gabby, any last things?
Yes, I want to second everything Reagan just said. I relate to the confidence, the ability to regulate ourselves so we react less in a way that we later regret 100%. And something else too, I wanted to add one word, I think, to explain how I felt after the immersion and to this day is more wholesome, like more complete. Like I got myself, like I have best friends, but I'm also feeling for the first time in my life like I'm my own best friend. Like I got myself, I've never enjoyed as much as I do now having time by myself, like going out to
Love
eat by
it.
myself and not caring as much as I used to about what people think of me. Not in a way like, of course, if someone tells me I'm being kind, like I want to know about that, but not overthinking about how I'm going to impress others. So there's just so many ways that the immersion changed my life. I used the word earlier, transformed. It's not that I felt like I was a new person, but there were a lot of, I think, polishing that was done. And I think the immersion, as a gardening analogy, let's say your podcasts and maybe some affirmations we hear across social media, like those plant the seed. But I think the immersion actually like dug, or no, the reverse. I think what we hear in podcasts and things that we don't really invest in, they dig the holes, but the immersion actually planted the seed for what we later put the soil on top and then water during an integration to grow, right? So
I love that's
yeah,
a great analogy. Also love that we involved the garden. Great analogy though. That was thank you, Gabby. Grace, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to say how wonderful, especially it has been to hear Reagan's story. Reagan, I'm gathering you're in your early 20s. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm 35. Yes. And I would say, first of all, like this kind of work it's never too late. It's never too late to do it. But also hearing your story, it makes me go, it's also never too early to do it. And there's a little part of me, not gonna lie, that's like a little jealous that you got to do this in your early 20s, because what a future you have ahead of you having done this kind of heavy lifting now. And I'm just very proud of you. I think
Thank
it's a really
you.
wonderful
That's so
thing.
sweet.
And I just think it's beautiful to be able to witness this in women in very different chapters of their lives at different ages, to see how this kind of work never goes out of fashion, is always applicable. And it is so masterfully led by Monica Yates herself.
Oh, thank you. But on that note, the last thing I'll say is I think what's also so beautiful when you're in a group with other women, and I truly feel like so many of us are just like craving the village again. Like we've done the independent thing and now we're just like, give me some wisdom from other women, is like, even though there are women there that are mothers or that are older than you or that are younger than you and that, or that are in completely different, stages of their life, there's something that every single woman in that room can teach you. And there's something that you can teach or give to that other woman. And I think a lot of us can really pigeonhole ourselves with, just consuming information or being around women of the same age, the same walks of life. And we don't realize, and we think that it's only expansive to like see a woman that's on the same trajectory, but just 10 years ahead of you. But there's something so expansive also about engaging with the woman that is on a completely different trajectory of you, because there could just be something that she says or does or gives you or doesn't say or doesn't do that actually just like gives you this aha moment. And I say this because I'm part of this business, like networking group, and none of us are similar, right? There's women in there that run like huge companies, like corporate stuff. It's like everyone's everywhere, right? It's not like it's a coaching thing by any means. And what I love about it is the fact that it's like so not coaching, like it's not, we're all the same, but every woman has something different to offer. There are some mums, there are some women that are not mums, some women that choose to not be mums, young women, older women. And it's like everybody just brings something, and they could say barely anything, but it's like they inspire me in some way, or they make me think differently about something. And I just think that we've lost we need to remember the value of that. We don't need to only hang around the same people all the time. We can expand ourselves through just being around really different women. Ladies, this was so amazing. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for this. I felt like it was just so, I just loved where it went. We didn't even get through the questions. Basically, I asked like 2 questions that I had on my list, but I love that because it was just organic. It went where it needed to go. Thank you all so much for your time. I know you're all busy women, and I know our time is precious. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing all of this. And so I just want you to know that it really means a lot. So thank you. I will let you know when the podcast, or Olivia will let you know when the podcast is out, so you can like proudly, show whoever to be like, I was on a podcast. We'll edit it up and we'll clean it up. And I just really appreciate you guys. So thank you so much for sharing everything today. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye everyone. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it, ladies. Bye-bye. Wow, ladies. Oh, that was nourishing. Like I have been loving doing these roundtables. As I said throughout the podcast a few times, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. If you need me to send you that little email of like how to explain the immersion to your man, please, again, feel free to ask. And there are a ton of resources that you can be checking out to learn more about the immersion. There's so many testimonials that you can read, and testimonials truly are the best way for you to kind of feel whether this is like a safe investment for you to make. And as everybody spoke about, like it's scary, right? It's scary doing these sorts of things. But instead of even just reading the sales page, right, which is a sales page, read the stories of the other women, because you are like the other women, and that could just spark something in you that really pulls you forward. I hope that you got lots of nuggets and ideas though from the other women. I loved what Gabby said. So just like highlighting this again, I loved what Gabby said about, I gave myself like a certain amount of time, and if I was still thinking about the immersion, then I was going to buy it. I think that's a really great practical way of like actually practicing listening to your intuition if you're not fully trusting it because you haven't learned how to trust your intuition. Like been there, like, and that the immersion's going to help. That could be a really great thing for you to do if that would feel helpful. Oh my God, look at this light streaming in. Like, it's all of a sudden gone angelic. I love it. So meant to be. And if there's any other questions that we can answer about coming to the immersion, please let me know. There's only one location this year, so there are less women that are able to come, because last year we had 2 locations. So I was able to take double the amount of women. This year, it's just this one location in Atlanta. All the details are on the website page. I cannot wait to do another immersion. It's going to be amazing. This new kind of version of it. I mean, it's the same in terms of what we're doing, but the way that I'm delivering it is slightly different, just to factor in the fact that I'm going to have a newborn. But I'm like, wow, it's going to make it even more magical. We're going to have this little angel in the room with us, not the whole time, because my mother-in-law is going to look after him as well. But yeah, here for any last things, and I will see you guys in the next episode.